Hey everybody, Tim Warlow here with the Countdown Realty team at Keller Williams, and I just wanted to touch base in regards to some of the things that have happened in our market. I'm going to do a May market update, which will probably look pretty similar to June, but all of the numbers are in for May. So let's start there, and then I will go over single family, multifamily, and the rental market. And in San Antonio, so the MLS in San Antonio does cover quite a few counties. We do have more than just Bexar County, and this is going to include all of those. So keep that in mind as you look at these numbers. It's for the entire MLS, which is a good 20 plus counties and goes all the way pretty far out from San Antonio. However, we use these numbers to generate year over year averages. So if you are going to look at the May 2020 report for the single family, you are going to want to pay attention to how many sales that we had. And if you take a look here, you'll see that in May we had 2869, which is 20% lower than 1 year ago. Last year we had 3590. 3,590 homes sold last year in May means that obviously we had fewer homes on the market for one thing. We had fewer buyers in the market for another thing. And that is pretty much to be expected, that we are going to have some people fall out due to unemployment, due to COVID, due to waiting. And to be honest, 20% does seem like a lot. It is not totally catastrophic. Still quite a few sales, and it's showing that May was probably when things started to come back. That was when we were finally able to be moving forward. But you know that it takes 30 days for those things to sell and close. So what this reflects is activity that was actually going on in March and April. Whereas we saw March and April were pretty consistently matched with 2020, that activity died down in March and April. So that means that by the time it hit May, closings were going to be reduced. Here's the most interesting part though. During that time, the average price point did not go down. It in fact went up, and some of the people in San Antonio probably felt that a little bit, even though there was a certain price point within our market was very competitive. I felt it at anything under 300,000 that was priced correctly, was very competitive. We had multiple offer situations on things, especially under 200,000. Everybody kind of knows that if there was a house under 200,000, they had a client for it, somebody looking for something like that. We got into multiple offer situations on those multiple times. So average price point went up 3%, median price went up 2%. No huge changes there. Average price per square foot in the 130 range, that was a change of 4%. Days on market was a little bit higher, only 5 days extra, so not too bad. Anything under 6 months is still considered a seller's market, so we're very much still in the seller's market. We have more buyers moving here than anywhere else, and San Antonio is still the 4th fastest growing city in the country, one of the top 5 for the last many years, and it's projected we're going to have another 1 million people here in the next 20 years. So that means that this demand that we're seeing right now is going to continue. That's anywhere from 50 to 100,000 new people every year. Those aren't necessarily full, that's not the number of homes that are going to be purchased in addition, but that is, a pretty good idea of how many people are going to be heading this way each year, and that we still have a housing deficit. So we're going to see construction continuing. We're probably going to see people moving out of the urban areas and into more rural areas because of COVID. They're going to be wanting to get away from those small condominiums and tightly knit houses into, if they can afford it, houses with larger lots and a little more space between people. So that's something interesting that I think we're going to see over the next couple years, is because of this thing, COVID, we are seeing those changes already take place in our market. New listings, we had 4,000 new listings added to the pipeline. Now what does that mean? If we only had 3,700 new sales, was that we added a little more than 1 month of inventory. And that's That's crazy. So we were only able to add another month of inventory to an already tight, very tight market. Their active listings was 8,675 with pending sales at 374. So that's actually right in line with our, pretty close to our days on market. It actually would reflect that in a month, if you add that same number and you had 3,700 homes go under contract, it takes roughly 2 months for a home to sell. If it's longer than that, the market feels that it is overpriced. If it is shorter than that, it's not always underpriced, but it does mean that you could have sat longer at that price point, maybe got closer to what, maybe got a little bit higher, but everybody has different reasons to sell. I never think it's a bad thing when a house goes under contract in the first week, so nobody really complains too much about that. Okay, so we're gonna move on. We don't do a lot of condos and townhomes, honestly, in San Antonio. We're talking about, barely double digits, so I'm going to skip those. Multifamily is more interesting, and so I am going to look at that really quick. That this year we saw only 19 sales in May of multifamily, and that could be because people are a little bit wary of what could be happening in the market if rental rates, if the number of renters decreases or the number of people who can afford to pay their rent goes down. They don't want to be stuck holding the bag on a expensive multifamily property. Multifamilies have gone up in price year over year, just like the rest of our market, but the deals, in my opinion, have been getting less and less attractive to investors, whereas they used to average in cap rates of 8%, which means you would get an 8% return on your investment, somewhat, pretty close. I could explain that a little bit better, but roughly speaking, your net income would be a fraction of the price. That would be about 8%. And now those are going down and down and down. And every time those cap rates go down, where we're looking at closer to like a 6% or 5%, the quality of that investment and the return on your money gets worse and worse if you don't factor in appreciation of rents. So if rents were to come to a stop, a lot of those investments would not be that good because taxes would continue to go up. You would still have mortgage payments to make, you'd still have these things, and you would see more foreclosures in the multifamily space. The average sales price of a multifamily property in San Antonio was about $256,000. That's because I think they're factoring in duplexes as well and lower end properties into this. Whereas in my mind, a multifamily property, you definitely want a minimum of a duplex, but typically the deals get better as when they're about a fourplex or better. So average price 1 year ago was $296. That change in sales price was 14%. Because there's not as many sales in general, you can see, if there's only 40 sales in a month and one deal goes for $100,000, that could actually skew your average results. Same is true if $1 million property closed. That could skew the results towards the positive side. Change in median price year over year was 30%. So that tells me that of below the median. So that means that there were much more sales below 200,000 and below our yearly average of 296,000 than there were the higher end products. And that is probably also a reflection of people's fear that, service industry jobs and lower wage jobs would be affected more heavily than the higher wage jobs by COVID, and that they wanted to dump those properties before that got ugly. So we can keep going down. I do want to point out that the residential rental market is interesting because whereas 1 year ago we had 1,383 sales, this year we had 1,489. That means 1,489 new leases were signed. The average price point went down only slightly, but the number of people signing leases in May was up 8%. So it's pretty awesome year to date. Okay, so year to date as of May, we've seen just a 3% decrease in number of sales. So last year we had 13,460 at this point. Now we've had 13,000. That is to be expected. That's really not that bad at all. May was obviously lower, but that means that we saw through the big points of COVID that it kept kept rising. Average price point up 5% still. At one point we were up even more than that, and the rest of the country was down in the double digits. You know, averages were anywhere from 10 to 17% down in price in certain markets, while San Antonio's continues to rise. So that's really a really nice thing to see, to know that we don't have to be super fearful, that hopefully if things continue on this trajectory, we will at least outlast a lot of the other cities that are unfortunately experiencing recessions. Same was true, just like the trend in May, multifamily sales were down, prices were up for the year. So it makes more sense with that median price this year being up 311%. 311,000, which is up 16%. Actually this year, okay, so this year we had higher days on the market than last year for multifamily. And again, that's like what I was talking about, multifamily deals not quite as lucrative as they used to be. Yeah, so that is really the best I can do for an outlook for up until May of 2020. That looks at our specific market through May and May itself. And then as soon as June's numbers come out, I will be happy to give you guys an update. In my opinion, things are still moving very strong. As we were able to reopen in May, it drove a lot of the people who were on the fence during those first couple months of the year. And now we're just trying to keep up with the amount of contracts and the number of people that are calling us ready to buy and sell. So I'm seeing a very positive trend, even with the things people are just accepting that this COVID is going to be a new reality and that we are going to keep growing. So if you guys have any questions, any specifics about the neighborhoods that you want to hear about, your home, I'd be happy to give you a market analysis on that and show you how we could get it sold as quickly as possible. So everybody in San Antonio, stay safe. We are under lockdown again to some extent, but we are still out there working as we are contractually obligated to continue to serve our customers. So thank you for checking in with Countdown Realty team at Keller Williams in San Antonio and Bernie, and I can't wait to see you guys in person and talk a little bit more about real estate. Have an awesome day.